You smell what the Peatman is cooking.
Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, what is up, risk takers? Okay, this is going to be a very exciting show. I have been asked by Paul, by Loma, by Harlow to give a talk for about an hour, and then we are going to do a 30 minutes of Q&A at the end. So, in the immortal words of my father, I never met a microphone I didn't like. So I've been asked to give this talk. I think we are entering into a new era for the community. Yeah, I love you too, guys. Thank you so much, Quarantine. Thank you so much, John Cena. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the World Symposium. Come on down to the World server if you want to get in the contest for those gift cards. I'm also down there doing the talk in the auditorium. And I think we should start at the beginning. So who am I? In case you don't know, I am Pete. The way I introduce myself is I am a top player in the game of Risk Global Domination. I have a daily release on YouTube. I do weekday shows on Twitch. And if you are interested in getting better at the game of Risk, I invite you to subscribe to my channels. Come along the ride with me. There's a lot in that intro. You've probably heard it once or twice. I've said it easily thousands of times. And I thought a lot about how to introduce myself coherently, comprehensively, and succinctly. Thank you, Eric. Thank you so much, guys. So I settled on that. I settled on I am Pete. I've always been Pete. When I came around to this community, just part of the way the Risk app worked is back then you could have your avatar be your Facebook profile picture. So I used my full given name, and that was the name I used when I joined the community. And it was the name I used when I competed. Probably for the first, say, 6 months, I went as my full given name that I remember asking Spud and Chair. It's like, hey, do you guys mind changing my name to Pete? So I am Pete. Now, who is Pete? I can give you an introduction. So I am 41 years old. I grew up in Thornhill, Ontario, currently live in Toronto. Toronto is the biggest city in Canada, in case you don't know. I've never lived anywhere else. Hey, thank you, Jocko Johnny. And thank you, Spin, for the raid, guys. Thank you so much. We're a lot of generous people hanging out with us today. It is much appreciated. So my experience of growing up, I had a wonderful, safe childhood. I love my family. I love my friends. And one of my childhood memories is of our game. Playing Risk at the board with some good buddies. And it is a thing that has been a part of my life since I would say I was about 9 or 10 years old. And let me just share my screen with the people. Risk has been a part of my life since childhood, and I want to show you guys a couple of things. So this is... Maybe I'll mirror the camera. This is my very first Risk video game. This is Risk 1 for PC. Camera doesn't quite give it. This is a CD-ROM, folks, okay? So you get a sense of the era we're dealing with. And this is Windows 95 compatible. I would also like to show you another thing I have. This is Risk for Sega Genesis, 16-bit system. I still have this. It still works. We can still play it at home. We don't, for some reason. We might have moved on. Onwards and upwards. But I'm showing you these things to just give you a sense of I still have them. They still mean a lot to me. And they are part of my story with this game. If you were to tell the Pete back then, I was on an archaeological dig. If you were to tell the Pete back then that I was ever going to be playing this game professionally. There is zero chance I would have believed you, because you have to remember that I did not grow up with this form of media being a thing, existing in any capacity. For me, growing up, television was like celebrities, right? People in TV and movies. And then, of course, video game television has evolved. And I already know that I sound like an old man when I call it video game television. I don't feel particularly like an old man. Sometimes I feel like an adult child. But I suppose at 41, where we might be entering the back nine of our life, and that's, something I have to make my peace with, and you all will have to make with yours. So that is my history with the game. I've been playing Risk since I was a child with my friends. I would host a game, usually at my home, once or twice a year with my buddies. And it was a nice way to connect with people you love. I love my friends. I hold them in very high esteem, and I really do seek to invest in maintaining those connections over my life. I have a group of friends that we've been close now since kindergarten, essentially. So that's a very long, very long history of playing, particularly on the board, right? Of playing the same game with the same people. As far as other games go, I do have a bit of a propensity for addiction. So I enjoyed gaming, but I also kind of tried my best to moderate it, just in the sense that I know how hooked on certain things I can get. So there was a longer period of my life in my sort of later childhood where I really tried to disengage from constant gaming, which I know is a bit ironic now considering what I do on a day-to-day basis. I've also historically really loved collections. I loved things. I like completion. I find it very satisfying to, the process of seeking to complete a collection. My very first business started in high school. This is when eBay was new. My eBay account is from 1999. I borrowed it from my father because I wasn't 18 yet, so he was able to actually transact on the early internet. And it was crazy back then. Like, you guys can't even imagine growing up now the types of doxing. Like, if you bid on something, I remember getting an angry email because I outbid someone on it was probably a Transformer. I was buying and selling Transformers and G.I. Joes, vintage video games and such. This is why I have all this stuff. And I remember he sent me an angry email. "You bid sniper, I'm going to get you. I hope you spend all your time sitting on the internet and being miserable, blah, blah, blah." But it's just so funny how eBay tightened it all up over the years and became a lot more professional. And we see that, on a systems level repeatedly, time and again. So yeah, my very first business in high school was buying and selling collectibles on eBay. I've always been a bit of an entrepreneur. Never really, the idea of working for someone else never really appealed to me personality. I'm much happier being on the top of a very small pyramid that I'm in total control of, rather than being a rung on a ladder where I have to be political, maybe pull my punches with what I have to say, and dance that dance of a hierarchy where there are other people who are more powerful, who have some sort of say over what, the course that my future takes. I remember actually I worked in a deli when, a supermarket deli, when I was trying to make enough money to go through university. And I remember my boss in the deli telling me, "Pete, at some point you're going to have to learn how to work with people." And I just recall in my head, I still remember this, thinking to myself, like, I'm not so sure I will. So I've always approached my public persona with a bit of, you can take me or you can leave me. The jury's still out on whether or not I'm a massive narcissist, but the reality of the situation is, doing this type of work publicly you really do have to make your peace with the reality that there's going to be a lot of people who just don't like you. And if I was desperately seeking external validation all the time, I think I'd be miserable doing this work. And I think it's a big part of why you hear all sorts of creators burn out, which I seem to be, thus far, thankfully, fairly resistant to. And that's considering that I'm up to 2 videos a day on 2 YouTube channels, plus Twitch, plus, everything else I do. So my history with gaming and collectibles, I've always loved games, but I never really thought to myself to construct a business that was fun. I always, however, tended to gamify or to businessify my gaming. Examples of which is, my first, I wanted to collect collectibles. So I was like, okay, well, how do I do this without spending my money? Is I'll transact a bit. Or later on, I got into Magic the Gathering, another game that I've played pretty much lifelong since it came out. I think Magic came out first in 1992, so I would have been 9 years old. Love the collection aspect, but it is a very expensive game. So I did a similar thing, is that I accumulated a bunch of cards and maybe did a little buy and selling on the side in order to justify that collection. My professional career in my school was outside of high school. I went to the University of Toronto. I have a degree in philosophy. I finished. I dropped out after 2 years, and I finished up at York University while I had started my business. My first business was with a partner, and the two of us had a gardening company where it was basically lawn mowing with a little bit of light gardening in the summers. And this was great to help me pay for my university. I was very grateful that I didn't move away. I lived with my folks. I tried to live frugally, and they obviously helped me, afford to live while I was paying for my school. And I understand that this is kind of an anachronistic story, something a bit out of time now. It's harder to do, if at all, these days to get any sort of degree without going into debt. This is not a bootstrap story, right? I understand how lucky I had to be born into this life. I do feel like I've played my cards well, but I also feel like I've gotten tremendously lucky in all sorts of ways. I finished my philosophy degree after dropping out. I worked for a gentleman who we did energy efficient retrofitting for businesses. So I got a little experience with electrical work. I got a little experience with gardening business. And then I started my company in 2006. And this is the company that I closed last year. So I've now been 1 full year since not gardening for nearly 2 decades. I got good dice of the universe. It's a great way to put it. So I was into Magic the Gathering Commander. I got back into it in 2012, and it became my primary hobby. I would play 2-3 days a week, sometimes at a local game store, eventually with a group of friends. And that crazy part of my brain was like, well, why not just collect all the Magic cards? This is another sort of thing about me, right? I like completion. Oh, you're going to play Risk? What would it be like to be the best? This is just how my mind works. So I'm a bit of a competitive psycho, in hopefully the best way. So I'm playing Magic the Gathering Commander, and I'm working. I got my company up to about, I think we had 8 employees at our largest, and I was doing 450 lawns a week. So 4 trucks plus me, 4 crews running. It was a lot of my personality type is very high orderliness. So it was a lot of sorting out a puzzle every week to try and get not all the customers satisfied. That's always impossible, but as many of the customers satisfied as possible, while also keeping my employees happy and paid. making sure I put food on the table. And I very nearly lost everything more than once. It's very risky being in business for yourself. But I always like to say that my successes are my own and my failures are my own in that way, right? So I really like the freedom I have to prove to the universe and eventually prove to myself that I am worthy, I suppose. So that's that external validation thing again. This will be a common thread we can touch on. The importance of measuring yourself externally, living in a world, right? Understanding that other people do matter, but ultimately learning how to validate yourself, how to prove that you deserve to exist for no other reason than the fact that you exist. I would like to bring this to a point in time now. My business collapsed in 2019. I pretty much sold off most of my clients, and I ended up working alone. I decided, long story short, employment is fundamentally broken in Ontario, at least in labor, and I realized that I was unable to get the minimum wage value out of my average employee's time. I was essentially being asked to write them a blank check for the privilege of having them work for me and not make me enough money. And this is not a failing of any individual person. It is a systems failure, right? There are a bunch. One thing I didn't realize was that there are a bunch of parasitic structures existing on top of employment in Ontario. So I took my chips off the table. I said, I will never employ anyone in this province again. And I was very happy just being the craftsman for a few years instead of the businessman. And then COVID happened. And in retrospect, it looked like I was brilliant to not have any employees, even though it's an outside job. Different jurisdictions did things differently, and ours was particularly draconian apparently for no good reason. And I certainly don't want to go into that debate here. But the point is that in March 2020, I pick up my phone, I download the Risk app. I can't go to the store to play the free-for-all Magic the Gathering Commander game that I like to play. So because I can't do that, because I can't sit at a table and look my friend in the eye, I start playing this Risk game. I'm pecking away at it, and I have animations on. Great design flavor, by the way, having a speed handicap for your new players. Certainly, we've lost thousands, tens of thousands of our players to this one individual design flavor. Pecking away at my phone. I'm playing progressive World Dom on Classic with the animations on. I got to Grandmaster, just probably from brute force, but also because there were so few good players back then until some idiot on YouTube taught everyone how to do it. So I start playing on my phone. I'm like, okay, I'm reasonably good at this. Well, then my brain goes, how good are you, Pete? Surely we could measure it. So the ranking system had a great way of measuring it. Might as well show you guys my stats here. So these are my risk stats. This is my first risk account. This is the risk account that I started on my phone at that point. And we are one game off of 7,000 games. 2,500 hours played. This is the one I play my tournaments on. And these are my overall stats. FFA record doesn't tell the whole story because there was, back then when I came around, there wasn't a split between 1v1 and FFA. So a lot of these, not most of these, but a lot of these are 1v1 games. This is my 1v1 record. And as you can see, Play with Friends is the opposite. I guess you got to kill Pete. But also, I was a event helper. So a lot of these losses are just games you fire and then bought out to help. run the tournaments. You can see I don't play casual or pass and play very much. I rarely play single player. I've defeated 1.8 million troops and lost 1.7. My longest win streak was 43. I remember the moment I lost that win streak. I do still remember that. I got up to 29th place on the world leaderboard playing World on Progressive on this account when pretty much all of the top 100 was 1v1 players. Fast forward to August of 2020, I record my first YouTube video. And I've shown this on the show before, but I think this might be a good moment for a clip. Because it's just nice to see how far we've come. You know, the distance between the guy sitting in the mic talking to you now and the guy in my very first video has to be night and day. And let's just take a quick look at him, because this seems like a different world for me now. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Pete, and I'm here to start a new project with Risk Global Domination. As you can see, I'm starting off as a novice. I haven't played any games with this account, and I'm curious to see how quickly it will take before I can rank up to a Grandmaster. So, what a dork. So first things first, I find this completely unlistenable because of that buzzing from the webcam. You can see that I'm in a closet. So, a closet? The closet? No, a closet. So this is my closet behind me. You can still see it's still there. I'm in the same spot, but we got a little bit of a green screen behind us. And yeah, this is what I was talking about, right? How you can see my Facebook profile picture. And this is Isambard the Sneaky. This would be the first game on that account. And I still use Isambard as my streaming and recording account for the most part. What a dork indeed. I have no camera presence. I have no sense of where we're going with this. It was more just, okay, you're pretty good at this. Well, how good are you? So first YouTube in August 2020, flash forward to January of 2021, which is my first tournament game. I joined the Risk Discord. I'd never used Discord before, and I joined the Risk Discord for this tournament. I remember it was Sterling who made a post on Reddit, and the post had to do with promoting this. We make it all the way to the finals, which is just the perfect thing for me. Let's look at this clip now. What is up, Risk Takers? Today we are playing the championship finals of the Q1 Discord tournament. I am super excited and super proud to have made it this far, and I just want to share my exuberance for finding this space on the Discord. I want to wish all of the competitors in this game the best of luck. And it is such an accomplishment to have made it this far. I'd be very happy to come in 6th. See how happy I am? You see what happens? So the old Peepman sitting in this chair doesn't really... You can see we've upgraded to a Snuggie behind us now. It's no longer the open closet. You can see the Snuggie hole. We call these videos the Snuggie era, folks. I played in this game against Sterling Fortune 27, a massive, massive force in the community. Played against Misty, who ended up winning the game. Played against Reed Cakes, General Vanman, and General Peacemaker. And the old Peatman did not realize at this point, but we were in for quite a show. This game went over 5 hours long. And when it was all said and done... I'm proud. Woo! What a great game of Risk.
Let's all go do something else now after 5.5 hours.
Yeah, let's all go do something else now. When it was all said and done, I end up second overall. And I gotta say, second overall is just the absolute perfect thing for a guy like me. For that crazy psychology. It's like, okay, wow, you are pretty good, but you're not the best. Which I love. Also, thank you, Fizmet. Thank you so much. And because I wonder if the story, we'll never know, right? But I wonder if the story would be different if I won that game, right? If I would be chasing it the same way. Other times in my life where I've come close to completing a collection, I almost intentionally stopped because I didn't want to lose that love of chasing it. You know, I didn't want to summit the mountain and know that there was no more mountain to climb. So in January 2021, for this tournament, I become a part of the community. I would like to offer not only thanks to Sterling for being the conduit by which I joined the tournament, but thanks to Spud for hosting that tournament. At the time, aka Stovetop, now aka Spud Top. And I also became friends with Parlox, and Parlox is a man who we've remained friends, and Parlox, Sterling, and Spud, amongst others, of course, are three very important people to competitive Risk today. Parlox, the host of the Risk Grand Masters tournament, and Sterling, the host of many, many other tournaments. Not least of all is Hall of Fame, which would be one of my big titles. Moving forward, becoming a part of the community was really interesting. I wanted to learn from the best. I wanted to be one of the best. In this period of time, early 2021, there was really still nothing much more for me to do, so I could spend a lot of my time online, making YouTube, making friends on Discord, being a part of the community, helping build the community. Parlox initially made the Grandmasters server so that we could have the Risk Grandmasters tournament, and the Risk Grandmasters tournament is still something that I humbly consider is the top competition in our game. I really do think that nothing quite touches incorporating the voice chat element to simulate or approximate what it's like to sit at the table with your friends, the roots of this game. I've noticed over the years that there are a lot of different types of neurodivergent folks that I've met in this community. A lot of people who are really good with numbers. That's never been me. I'm not great at calculating. I more intuit numbers. I can get 90% of the way there almost instantly. But the level of precision required, the level of time required to get to 100% often leaves the type of whatever neurodivergence I have behind. I'm better with words than with numbers. I think that's obvious. But speaking to one person is very different than speaking at scale. So I try my best with my words to be comprehensive in my meaning. And I try not to condescend to my audience as much as I can. But sometimes I'm sure often the criticisms, fairly, the criticisms you could lob at me would be, this guy uses $5 words just to sound smart, or, why be verbose when being simple would be more effective. Again, it's tricky to talk to 100 people like right now, let alone talk to tens of thousands of people like I do on a daily basis. So I assume I do a good enough job. But the VC component in the Grandmasters tournament was my favorite, and it really does kind of hurt me a little bit to realize that does not translate well on the show. It either is lost, some of the nuances lost to the viewer, or the quality of the audio bothers them, or both. Or the third category is there are Risk players today that are considered top players that have no diplomacy. Maybe not no diplomacy, but aren't good at that, right? Have very low skill in that particular domain, which I can't help but laugh because that's what the game is to me, right? The game isn't necessarily calculating the odds of a 70s path. Well, an important part of the game. It's not the game. The game is people, right? The game of Risk is playing your opponent's psychology, predicting what they are going to do, figuring out how to work with them, figuring out how to work together to give them what they want such that they give you the win, right? If your opponent's troops aren't going into you, but they're going into someone else, and they are a benefit to you. And this is the fundamental logic behind good neighbor theory. There's a lot of overlap with game theory and philosophy. So someone with a good memory, someone who's good with words, someone with a philosophical background, someone who's ridiculously competitive. It really does seem like I have very, very luckily found a place that I'm just perfectly suited, a thing I'm perfectly suited to do. So we are at this point in time, in January 2021, we're struggling to be a top 100 player in the risk ranking system. Now, the risk ranking system is broken. We have a facsimile of a ranking system. It's okay at getting a sense of if you're a beginner or if you're not. But it uses the term Grandmaster erroneously. Let's start with that. What is a risk Grandmaster? Well, a risk ranking system Grandmaster is someone who I would say has close to 50% of a top player's ability. You're about halfway there if you make it to Grandmaster, which isn't nothing. I'm really not trying to sully anyone's accomplishment. You should feel proud that you worked hard and accomplished a Grandmaster in this game. But I do think that the way SMG has used the term really does let us down, because there are some true Grandmasters in this game. You know, the gentleman I spoke of just earlier, Spud, Sterling, Parlox, some of my other friends, Kyle, Marin, Brambat, right? These guys are absolutely Grandmasters, right? These are top people. And yeah, I mean, this is a good point to bring up the reason I chose to structure my intro the way I do, right? What is up, risk takers? It's not what's up. Sometimes I say what's up, but it's what is up. What is up, risk takers? There's a rhythm to it. Welcome to the Kill Pete strategy. Hello, this is the show. Who are you? I am Pete. Don't need more than that. Except, what are you? Why should I listen? I am a top player in the game of Risk Global Domination. So I'm not a Grandmaster. I am a top player. And before I came up with that intro, I wasn't. So what makes a top player? Why can I give myself this title or this description fairly or rightly? Am I a top player? What measurements could we use to prove it? We'll discuss that. I'm a top player in the game of Risk Global Domination. I have a daily release on YouTube. Now twice daily. I do weekday shows on Twitch. I'm still streaming on Twitch. Been on Twitch since May 2021. Thanks to Drew for setting that up. If you are interested in getting better at the game of Risk, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and come along the ride with me. Why, if you are interested in getting better? Because I am interested in getting better. Okay? I think this part of the intro is the part that is most confusing for new people. If you are interested in getting better, it's not me saying you should listen to me because I am an authority. I am not pretending to be an authority on anything. Ever. This is, if you want to talk about the philosophy of my work, this is it. I am not sitting here pretending to be an authority on anything. I have accomplishments. I have data. But I am interested in honestly sharing my opinion. What do I think? And if you are interested in getting better at the game of Risk, I invite you to come along the ride with me. So, one of the things that I wanted to take this opportunity with the symposium to do was, I am going to be announcing a significant change in the philosophy of the show. Now, almost 4.5 years in on YouTube, it's time for a change for me. So we may no longer be, if you are interested in getting better at the game of Risk, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. But I hope that there are other value propositions I can offer you. And no, I will not be quitting Risk. So do not worry about that one, ladies and gentlemen. The timeline in 2021, I have middling tournament results. I'm very busy in the ranking system, though. We get to top 100. We eventually get to top 10. We even eventually get to rank number 1. Now, mind you, I was saying that there was a 1v1 system. So the top 10 were 1v1 players. And 1v1 has its place, right? I was very disinterested in 1v1 Risk for a lot of that time. But it's a piece of the game. It's certainly not the top of the skill, though, because within every free-for-all game is a series of unequal 1v1s. It is a part of Risk. So we get to the top of the Risk leaderboard, and we are instrumental in creating a protest. Some of you might remember the Fix the Ranking System protest, where the majority of the players in the top 100 changed their names to fix the ranking system. We finally got enough people to get SMG's attention to actually give us a separate leaderboard for 1v1s. A great step in the right direction. Towards the end of... in the middle of 2021, I received monetization on YouTube. I start making my nickels. Now, I remember back then my father says to me, I'll believe it when I see it. You mean they're going to pay you to play video games? And he was right. It was as absurd to me as it was to him. But sure enough, I started making those nickels. You know, that first 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, there was no sense in my mind that this would be a thing that was real, that would make money. Make real money. You know what I mean? How it is ludicrous, though. It really is. Like, I should be so lucky as to be able to speak and do something I love. And make a living doing that, right? Compared that to cutting lawns and mowing lawns and plowing snow, you guys can't imagine how hard it is. How miserable it is sometimes. Like, I've plowed snow for 36 hours straight, all day and all night, in the freezing cold. Try not to crash my truck. Try not to hit shit and get into car accidents and give away all the money. I try not to hurt myself. This is so much of a better job for me. I'm so, like, I try to express my gratitude to be here. I'm so grateful that I get to do something I love and I get to spend time with my friends doing it. It is a blessing. So I start making a little bit of money in season 3 of 2021. There was a tournament game where Kilted and Marin competed. I did the cast of it. It's a bit of a busy shirt for YouTube, Pete. I don't think the shirt got a second view, but other than that, the beard's looking good. I like this. I like this looking Pete. This is a good Pete.
Next turn with 35, not quite as good at as the 30.
The mic though, you know, good audio is a key part of this YouTube game. So this is Kilted versus Legatus versus Marin. And they're in a 3-player stalemate in World Domination. Marin eventually disconnects. Legatus betrays Kilted, killing him, and then losing to the bot. So Marin wins the world title posthumously. And we made a number of changes to our theory crafting around risk competitions at that point. Moving to 2022, this is the big year for me. Okay? In 2022, I compete in the first season of the Risk Discord tournament. And I get defeated in the semifinals by a player who we do not know who this player is. But there are some suspicions. Oh, look at that. I did wear that shirt again. There are some suspicions that this player was an alt. The player who targeted Cosmic Cowboy in the finals, right? Basically sullying all of the hard work that all of the staff in the tournament and all of the competitors did to try and run a fair and clean tournament, because alt accounts were allowed back then. I saw this just to be the scummiest, lowest thing you could possibly do. Sitting in another player's bonus, making it to the finals, only to not play to win yourself, but to play to make someone lose. I couldn't imagine the kind of vindictive, miserable person that would do something like that. So because of that, we made some more changes. And we got alts out of tournaments. And I love that. And I still love that, despite the fact that me being able to play as an alt in a tournament right now would definitely benefit me. Absolutely no regrets. A unfair competition is no competition at all. So we have been making some positive changes. In the middle of 2022, so we get semifinals this season. The subsequent season is the one that everybody remembers. The one where, under the gun, a top player managed to just get a little bit unlucky, miss a split. You guys know this moment. The intensity and the ferocity of that moment. Winning a world title, folks, meant a lot to me. You can tell it did. I worked really hard at it. I also had to get super lucky. Thank you, Louise. Thank you so much. But yeah, I mean, I'm still kind of affected by it. When you work really hard at something and you achieve it, it is a big move. Thank you, Under the Gun, for Mrs. Bathing. I remember talking to him at the time, right? Under the Gun got his. Under the Gun is generally considered to be one of the best players to ever play. So he got his. But I got mine there. And that's it, right? That's my championship title. Can't take that away from me. I was the world champion for that season. And then a couple of dominoes started to fall from that. I am the world champion, and then my marriage finally ended. So I'm having a lot of drama at home. My YouTube starts taking off in July of 2022. My YouTube channel goes from 6,000 subscribers, which is a ton. And I was making, a couple $100 a month, to 60 in 3 months. We hit an exponential moment, a viral moment on YouTube, which was completely unexpected. And I can show you a clip of that. So this is my biggest video. Yeah, it looks like Orange going to take off. This is the Risk World Championship Season 1. This is my first stream with over 100 viewers. We get a big Pete here. The light is fucked. It's an intense game. I'm playing against Asylum, who's a top player. We do win. We get an appearance by Reggie. I think it's just the perfect combination. If you guys haven't seen this video, I'd love to know if it stands up, because it's really got,
see who goes after me.
Got really loud alerts.
Silent is top 500 Grandmaster.
I'm still kind of wooden.
631 hours played with 384 wins and 310.
Sound like a robot
troops.
to me. My current performance compared to this. But I'm very animated. I want this. I want to win this tournament. You can see the passion, and I think the passion really resonates with people. That is my biggest video. This video currently has 3.1 million views. That is so many people. The number are just unfathomably large to me, that 3 million people would want to watch that. Yeah, we're nice blizzards. Oh, dude, the sound alerts are so annoying. If only I could go back in time and edit it, right? But I'm not touching that video on YouTube. That acted as the funnel to my channel for about a year and a half. Still, I think it's still the biggest funnel that my channel gets. And it kind of coincided with a bit of a boom in the community, a bit of a boom in my YouTube specifically. And I've been kind of chasing that for a while. I've been playing in every tournament I can play in. I can make video on both channels. One of the reasons I made the second channel was A, to avoid burnout, but also B, to have a place to document and explore all of my tournament performances. And in the midst of this moment, in the midst of my YouTube going crazy and all sorts of crazy stuff happening at home, somehow I make finals again. So I'm one of the very few players in our game to make back-to-back finals. And this season, season 3 of 2022, is the season where Fonty13 wins his title. Fonty also generally recognized to be a top player. So I'm going to show you a clip from this one. What occurred in this game was my buddy Kuehl decided to card skip, which generally risked stalemates. So I got a little cheesed at that.
Then Amu and Pierre This is dumb.
Yes.
You should take a card.
This is dumb. You should take a card. You can see the vibes are not peak Pete. One thing I really learned after this was just how important the energy I am projecting into the universe is, because I should be so lucky as to have the opportunity to speak into this microphone and have the work be appreciated, you know? And I should not squander this, and I should not take this for granted. You deserve the best because you will vote with your feet. You will watch something else if it's not the best. So I really do strive to think about you, the viewer, what you want to see, what you want to hear. And you don't want to see some pissy baby losing a game for whatever reason he might lose. This is where the passion butts up against the show. How do I make the best show I can make while remaining competitive, while remaining passionate, but also being kind, being respectful, showing love to my opponents, showing love to the viewers, right? All of these things are very tricky to balance. I like to say that I love you. And the reason I say that I love you is you deserve it. And you deserve it for no other reason than the fact that you exist. We all deserve it. And we are all one people. And I want to be a voice, and I want to be a force of unity in this world that is so fractured and so hurting. And sometimes I do not show up as my best, because that's reality. The show is a warts and all show, and you see me at my best, you see me at my worst, and everything in between. And I try to be an honest reflection of the man I am, as much as I can be. You know, I can't obviously share all of my internal thoughts. I can't share all of my heart with you. But I really do try to express a message of love to all. It is so important. It is a lesson that I had to learn the hard way. Perhaps the only way we learn anything. I have a lifelong history with depression. I speak about it honestly because I feel that part of mental health comes from conversation with others. Again, I do not speak about it as an authority. I'm not telling you how to play Risk, and I'm not telling you how to fix yourself. But what I am saying is, if my suffering can make the suffering of another less, even a little bit, then that makes it all worthwhile to me. And I've had some very dark times. We all have. I do think, though, that getting past my natural inclination to melancholy, getting past the place where I thought about harming myself on a daily basis or worse, made me the type of guy who was then fit to sit in front of this camera on this microphone and talk to you, because I don't think anyone would have wanted to listen to the man I was before. And that's not to say I am perfect, right? At all. I fuck all sorts of things up all the time, but that's okay. We all do. Okay, so thoughts. Thoughts on the state of the game. We are in November 2024. I have won a Hall of Fame tournament, defeating some of the best players in the game. I've won the World Championship title. I've made it to 3 finals. I've made it to 4 Grandmasters tournament titles. I'm the inaugural Assassins champion. I'm the inaugural PRT Invitational champion. My team won the Risk League. There's a litany of accomplishments The announcement I would like to make at this point is I am done trying to measure myself. I've made it to the top of the risk leaderboard. I've made it to the top of the Sabre system. As of recording, I am currently rated 10th in the world. I spent most of 2023 rated 2nd. I don't think that there is much more to be gained by attempting to measure myself. That's not to say I'm not interested in getting better at the game of Risk. I am. I always will be. But the gains are asymptotic to zero, right? The asymptote, I'm using math terms without diagram. So if you guys understand the asymptote, is always approaching zero, but never quite reaching it. And this is how I kind of analogize my gains in this game at this point, right? We are still getting better, but very, very ever so slightly. And there's so much luck in Risk, and there's so many great players now coming around too. More and more and more. I don't want to be the guy in competition getting suicided into anymore. And it might not appear as a suicide to the person doing it. This is the disconnect between where I'm at and where they might be at. Right? I have to show them love. And I think the solution for me is to massively dial back the types of competitions I'm willing to engage in. Because quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, I no longer have anything to prove to you. You can take me or you can leave me. You can like me or not. I love you. I love this community. I love our competitions. I'm still very happy to promote everything Risk competition related. We are hearing a lot of complaints right now, actually. There's too many competition, which I kind of have to smirk at, considering how many years I spent desperately waiting months to compete again. And now I am sitting here telling you that I'm going to step back from doing so. I would love to earn myself a Grandmaster's title. We might not get that. Risk tournaments no longer receive all that many views on YouTube. Given that this is my job, one thing I want to do is I want to do the thing that you want to watch, while having it also be the thing I want to do. So I'm interested in creating other sorts of gaming shows. One of the things I'm going to do after dialing back competition is I will be setting up a streaming schedule so that you can know when I will be on and we can hang out together and we can have a regular type of show. My thoughts on where the game is itself. I think the game of Risk is kind of stagnant. It is up to the devs to give us the tools we need to bring it into the esport that I know it can be. We require a sandbox mode. Whoever creates the sandbox mode will hold the key to Risk esports. If it is SMG, that would be wise for them to consider before it is too late. Someone will design this without them. Having the ability to control spawn points, blizzards, portals, troop numbers would allow us to get the maximum utility out of the existing content by giving us a map editor and charging players a subscription to use it would give us infinite options and allow the bones of this great game to reach the potential. I see no reason why Risk cannot be as popular as chess. There's absolutely nothing intrinsic to the game other than the fact that chess is heads up and Risk is free for all. I make that comparison because of the recent explosion in chess. We are currently all mutually squandering an opportunity. This game has a great destiny, and the length of time it takes to reach it is not up to me. I'm just a guy with a microphone. But if I am given a game to play, I will try to win. I think that's the offer. Let's figure out how to win. And let's try not to be too sour when we lose. Our community is in a very great place. I'm very grateful to the folks at WRLD for letting me have this chat. I enjoyed talking about all these subjects. I really hope I did the Symposium justice. I think we have a great future ahead together. There's some brilliant people in the community, some cool people in the community. Thank you to Harlow for the introduction, and to Paul, and thank you to Loma for asking me to do this. And yeah, I'm very happy to open up the floor to a Q&A, and if I may just refill my cup, and I will be right back.
So the first person that is going to be joining us here on stage to ask a question to the Pitman himself is going to be Mooncake. So jump in.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Can you hear me loud and clear?
What's up?
What's up, buddy? Yeah, so basically, I just had a couple questions. It's going to be a couple points, if that's okay with you. Basically, if you were in charge of risk in its future, where would you like to see it go, your vision from a business standpoint? And how would you balance task versus people orientation? I know you said you kind of like stepped away, like you don't have the reins or anything, but I'm just really interested to kind of pick at your mind as far as a
Sure.
business aspect.
Yeah, so
And-
I'm in my head I'm interested in design, right? So the viewpoint I would have on the game is, as a user, as a player who uses the game, at all levels, right? I want the game to be accessible to the brand new player. I want the game to be accessible to the top player, and I want the game to grow. So how would we do those things, right? As far as managing a business, I could be a bit more disinterested in that, but I do think that how the design philosophy for Risk, right? How do you build out something that would appeal to the maximum number of people? We see very simple things not get addressed, right? We're looking at a network overhaul such that data isn't carried on the user side, it's carried on server side. Really nothing can happen until that happens, right? Because the game is too easily compromised by hacking. So once that gets fixed, I think the number one most important thing the devs could do to make the game more successful would be to remove the camera animations on as default, right? Having new players play at a speed handicap just seems like such a miss. They're losing games that they don't know why they've lost. They don't understand why players are moving twice to 10 times as fast as them. Nobody likes to lose unfairly. So having that be on as a default would be the number one thing I would change. And then fixing the dice so that they work intuitively, right? So that you don't have 0% outcomes occurring regularly, like positive cap rolls in the thousands. Simple things like that. But then the long-term vision, having sandbox mode that we could control the spawn point of blizzards, of players, of portals, control the value of bonuses, and then eventually a map editor. I think this would be the key to monetization of the sandbox mode, is you charge a subscription to use it, and you charge a subscription for players to use user-created maps. Then you allow the users to create whatever maps they want, and then there's some sort of system where those maps get upvoted, so popular maps get played. And this would be a boon not only to the competitive scene, but also to the internal ranking system, which also is long overdue for an overhaul.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate it, man. Thanks for the insight. Just one last thing. What advice would you give to building a successful like broadcaster team, like especially if you're trying to host tourneys, things like that. And you've got a lot of a breadth of experience, so I'm just really interested what your thoughts on that would be.
Sure. Well, I kind of have done this whole thing by reverse engineering. So what I spend my time thinking about is like similar to when I'm playing a game of Risk. What does my opponent want? In the YouTube business, I'm thinking, what does my viewer want? What do you guys want to hear? What do you guys want to see? The number one most important thing is audio quality, I would say. If your mic sucks, if your voice sucks, if you're speaking unclearly, if there's too many ums or ahs, that is the thing you're going to want to iron out first as far as any sort of broadcast medium, video or audio. I think YouTube is an audio medium first and a video medium second. And a lot of people, I'm sure, watch the show kind of glancing at the game when things happen, but for the most part, just listening to me talk. And the fact that I can talk forever is also a bonus. So you want people who can fill the space, who don't step on each other's toes. Like I really enjoyed broadcasting with Harlow recently. I think we shared the space very well. And that is how I would say it. It's like number one most important thing. Make sure you're clear and you sound good on the mic. And yeah, obviously then rapport. Having people who are knowledgeable and who have good energy also helps a lot.
Awesome, man. I really appreciate your time. I'll be stepping out. Appreciate it, Paul and Harlow and everybody here. Thank you.
Yeah, cheers, man.
Thank you for your question, Mooncakes. Appreciate it. And thank you for being the first one to join us on stage. Now, the next question is going to be by Victim of Isolation. He has an interesting question for Pete. It's not necessarily risk related, but I think Pete definitely is going to be a nice person to talk about it, since it's something that he did mention during his talk. So, Victim, yeah, perfect. Go ahead, Victim.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So more on the philosophy or depression side of it, I've experienced a lot of failure in my life. At this point, motivation is non-existent anymore. Passions are dead. How do you recover from losing everything that matters when it's almost unbearable to move?
Sure. One of the principles of Stoicism is that the universe kind of exists on its own in a morally neutral way, and it's up to us to feel how we feel about that. But the place where you matter, the place where you have a locus of control, is what do you do about that? You know, terrible things happen in this world. I don't know, first thing about what you're going through in terms of specifics. But the place that you and I have a kinship is that happened. What are you going to do about it? And for better or worse, it's up to you. Now, you can find that empowering, or you can choose to allow the weight of the world to feel unbearable. But I think it's very important to recognize that even in the moment that it feels unbearable, you are bearing it. You're here with us right now in this moment. And I believe it is a beautiful moment. And I try to act that way, right? I try and share this moment with you and say, I love you, man. I don't know you, but I just want to, if you're suffering, I want to send you that little bit of good energy, that little bit of hope, that little bit of positivity. And I've had very dark times. So, I can know some of what you're feeling, what you're going through. And I can say that if you choose to look at the world with hope, if you choose to show up for yourself, if you choose to believe that you matter, maybe that's the best way to think about it. I believe that I matter, and I believe that you matter. And our belief is very powerful. Our belief literally makes the world. Someone didn't invent something accidentally. They had an idea in their head and they manifested into reality. We are far more powerful and creative than we give ourselves credit for. And I do not think you are unique. Right? I think we are all one people together. And I really want to say I love you, man. Sometimes it's just nice to hear. It's nice to know that someone else is out there thinking about you.
Well, I appreciate it. Hopefully I can find someone that can actually support me in my life.
I believe you can.
I don't think I can do it alone.
Oh, you got this.
You are not. Let me jump in fairly quick. Let me make something clear, my friend. You're part right now of the risk community. You're not alone. You have a whole community that is together with you in the love or lack of playing this game. And one way or the other, we're here for you, my friend. So you're just from the get-go, just from the bat, just from this moment on, you're part of the risk community. You are not alone.
Oh, not yet. Zango hasn't suicided me yet.
Well, that is in game. That happens. Nothing that you can do. You can just, if you get annoyed, just brush it off, breathe deeply, and then play another game. That is the nice thing about this thing. After a bad game, you can either have another bad game or hopefully a better one. But just bear that in mind, my friend. You are not alone. You are part of the risk community, and me as part of the risk community, I'm here for you. So you're not alone. Just bear that in mind. As of this moment, and probably by now, but as of this moment, you are part of the risk community. You're part of our community.
Hopefully I get to stay here. Thank you for your time, guys.
Yeah, man.
Okay, let me remind you guys that if you have, and thank you, Victim, for the question. Thank you for the bravery of joining the stage. The next, we have the next person that is going to be Blazon. And while we get Blazon on stage, folks, let me remind you, if you have any question, feel free to go directly on DM Paul and Robertson so we can get you in queue. Feel free to do so, and then we're going to get you on stage. Blazon? Can you good, Blazon?
Oh, hello. Sorry, I was muted.
What's up, man?
So I had a few questions, but I'll just ask one for now, and then if there's time later, I might pop back in.
Sounds good.
But the first one was to do with the competitive scene and the elements of luck in it, or chance.
Sure.
And how you think this affects Risk's overall standing as a potential competitive game, potential esport.
Sure.
And how we can maybe minimize any negative effects.
Sure. So I think there are two fundamental ways to approach luck. And I think the type of person you are determines how you view it. So I get a ton of comments on my YouTube, to the extent to which, like, I'm not impressed. This is just a luck game. And that is a common, I don't know if that's a majority opinion, but that's a common opinion. Luck exists. It exists in all ways. One of the ways it exists in our game is in this sort of undermining way, where people who lack the ability to understand where the skill is just write it off as unlucky. So that will affect its standing overall as a game because it has an element of luck. It also has massive skill elements, and I like to say, a big part of the skill in the game is managing the different types of luck, right? Playing to your outs in unlikely scenarios when you're dead, but you're not done. If you're sure you're dead, you might as well try something. How it affects its standing, like this is it is fundamentally Blazon a problem of arrogance. I have noticed when I lose a game and I say I got unlucky, and I'm not expert in that game, I have noticed that I am wrong more often than not, that I'm missing something. It's easy for us to say we lost because of luck because it helps us protect our ego. It's a lot harder to say, what were my actionable points there? What could I have done given the luck to put myself into a potentially winning position? And that is a certain type of mind, and I think that is a rare type of mind, but that is the type of mind that thrives in our game. You know, always play to your outs, never give up until you're dead, and try and put yourself in a position where you can get lucky. Then maybe you will.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, man.
That is probably a similar conclusion to what I've come to, and I appreciate hearing.
No worries, man. I'm sure you've thought about. I'm sure you've thought about this a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was also given the go-ahead to ask another one of my questions, which was similar to something we'd already mentioned with the dissatisfaction behind the handling of the game right now and SMG's involvement. So I was just wondering how you'd like to see this overcome, because I know we had the question posed of if you were to be in charge of risk, but also how do you see this being, like, how do you actually see this being overcome? Would this be SMG, or would they maybe have Hasbro change their partner?
Yeah, well, there's three basic possible futures. Well, I guess there's four. There's the current future, which I think is the most likely future, where nothing happens and change is very, very slow. And the game kind of languishes in this doldrum of tons of potential and then no actualization. This is the future I see as most likely, unfortunately, given the amount of time and effort I've spent on the game. There is a future where SMG suddenly decides to consult with top players who understand their games, or content creators, or both, right? Who understand the game from the perspective of the new player, but also understands the game from the perspective of a champion who can design in things for both. Like the lenticular design between something that's good for the average, right? Something that makes them money. You know, I do not begrudge a business for trying to make money. I just think that they underestimate what they're sitting on. There's the world where someone else takes on the IP with Hasbro and then, you know, either redesigns or iterates from the design we have here. And then there's the world where someone comes up with a better client independently, and it outcompetes this one. And all of those worlds are possible. And I don't know which one will come. I think long term, if I were to bet my money, I would say long term, someone at Hasbro realizes what they're on, what they're sitting on, and invests a little more energy into getting us there. But, you know, it's a low odds bet any way you look at it, because any of those other options could occur.
Thank you again. Yeah. I remain quite optimistic about that sort of thing. Just seeing the efforts and the skills of the people in the community and what they've been applying to, the pressure they've put to try and get the game improved.
I would agree with you there. I think long term I'm optimistic to a point of certainty. I think I think this game does reach a destiny at some point where it kind of, it's a household name, you know, in the English speaking countries at least. Risk is a 70-plus-year-old IP that is a household name. It's not going anywhere, and it has the bones of a great system. I always like to echo the words of a great game designer, Mark Rosewater, who is the lead designer of Magic: The Gathering. And I listen to this man's podcast a ton, and he talks a lot about game design. But one of the little things that I assumed when I heard it the first time, I was like, oh yeah, that makes total sense, is that Magic kind of reached its beginning ascendancy to this massive IP it is now, from first hiring folks from the competitive scene. So once they got tournament champions involved in development and design, the game got a lot better. And I see the exact same thing happening with Risk. To your point about there being very talented and invested people in the community. Folks in our community, if we were just allowed to create, if we were unshackled and allowed or enabled to make maps, to make modes, whatever, we would. And we'd do a ton with that. So I have no doubt in my mind that there's reason to be optimistic as well.
Nice. Did we want to move on to someone else's questions? I still have another one that I can spit out, but if there's other people waiting, I'm happy to move on.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Then one kind of third and final question would be, you were mentioning how you're interested in maybe taking a step back from trying to prove yourself in the tournament scene.
Yes.
But if you saw, because right now we do have certain tournaments which maybe hold a bit more prestige than others, but I don't necessarily know if there's one to rule them all per se, and maybe would you be interested in if the esports sector of it really exploded and there suddenly became this one to rule them all?
Well,
would you be interested in
one of the problems
go back to that?
One of the problems with this question, Blazin, is that I happen to do this for a living. So I can never say never if there's money on the line. But my philosophy behind the competition is changing right as of now. Up until this point, I was very interested to ask the question, how good of a player am I? And how can I prove that? How can I collect data to attest that? And what I'm saying with this is that I'm done asking that question. I'd much rather compete for fun, if at all, and or compete for prizes rather than compete for, what is it, glory? I don't even know if that's the right word. It's the, I don't know, it's the quest to prove something to yourself, I guess. I know who I am, and I know where I stand in this game. Clout, sure. But what I'm saying is I no longer have any interest to prove it to you. If what I have done so far is not enough, that's all I can do.
Fair enough. Thanks you.
Thanks for the questions, man.
That's all my questions.
Yeah.
Thank you, Blazin. Appreciate it a lot. Now, sorry. Now the next question is going to be by Knowles. Knowles, please come and join us on stage right now. And now the space is yours.
Hi, Pete. I want to say, first of all, thank you for everything you do for the community. You've done a lot for everybody here, and I know you fully well know, and you don't have to prove yourself to anybody here. But my question is, in terms of professional risk, how do you feel that the upcoming 8, 10-player, and 12-player game modes will affect the professional scene? And do you believe that will possibly lead to map congestion?
What do you mean by map congestion?
Possible overcrowding. I mean, that there could be more pocketing alongside it.
Some maps just won't work for that. Yeah, I mean, that's already a problem. There are certain maps that just aren't viable for larger modes. The idea of having a ton of players, I would actually think that the big problem is less map based, but more troop based. How do you balance turn order? What are they just going to give? We get an additional 3 troops if we're in the 6th seat. Do we get 4 in the 7th? 5 in the 8th? What happens if you don't live that long? So I think the key balancing point is less about the map and more about the amount of initial troops, accounting for the fact that there are additional players. And, you can just get an unlucky spawn if you're in the 8th seat and then you don't get to play. But I mean, yeah, you're right. Both are serious problems that need to be developed. But also very exciting. Like, I've always said I would love to play with more folks. Like, if I can hang out on stream and have a 10-person game, I'd definitely do it.
The Risk Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
No, hey, I'm down for that. I'm willing to feed as many bounties as I can feed. Knowles, any other questions?
No, that was my primary one.
Okay,
Awesome.
no problem.
Thank you, man.
So,
yep.
So the next person that is right now about to start to come here in the stage and talk with the pitman himself is Ramballo. I am looking for you right now. Where are you? I should have looked for you beforehand, so why can I not find you, Ramballo? Oh, you're here already. That is why I cannot find you. Stage is yours, my friend.
Thank you, guys. My question for you, Pete, is how do you feel about the current idea of a quote-unquote meta settings, and how do you think that affects the overall integrity of the game?
Yeah.
And also, how does it affect you as a creator?
Yeah. Okay, great. So one of the things about the meta settings, one of the things that makes any settings meta is agreement. So we all have to decide mutually that something is meta before it can be meta. So what is great about the meta settings, and I'll say prog caps on Europe Advanced as the meta settings, some variety of prog caps on Europe Advanced. One of the things that's great about it is this perfect storm between the map being incredible, the map being susceptible to different Blizzard configurations, allowing very different types of games to be played, so it stays fresh. The map being able to help skilled players leverage all sorts of different skill gaps. How do you read the Blizzard config? How do you read your opponents? How do you read the fog? How do you play caps and all of those things? I would say that a meta settings is inevitable, and I would say that a meta settings isn't chosen. It is something that is derived. There will always be a meta. There will always be something that is meta, something that is quote unquote the best thing to rank up. And ironically, I think at this exact point, Europe Advanced Progressive Capitals is not the best thing to rank up using. It's not the most consistent. I don't want to tell you guys what is, because you got to watch the show for that, but I'm working on solving all sorts of different problems, right? And I love playing those Europe Caps games. Don't get me wrong. I still do them, and I still really enjoy them. But I would dare say that while they are the meta they are the meta in the sense that they are the thing that is being the most played, I don't think that they are the meta in the sense that they are the best thing to rank up with, if that makes any sense.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
That will be all I have for you today.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Ramballo, for your question. Appreciate it a lot. And thank you so much for joining us on stage. Now, the next person is going to be this Lockjaw himself. Lomas Lockjaw is ready to jump into the stage, and hopefully he doesn't hit us as hard as he does in the game. Come on, Loma, jump in. I think I already made you a speaker, didn't I? Yeah.
The big man himself. Get him in here.
He can be shy sometimes.
That's what it is.
I sent you the invitation, Loma. You just have to click that and join. See, whenever I think this is all part of his anticipation. There you got it. Now he's gonna start hitting hard. I just lost my 10th stack.
You didn't need those 10 troops anyways, Harlan.
Good afternoon, Pete. How you
Yeah.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. This is more of a personal question.
Sure.
He'll be back.
Yep.
It was that personal that you have to go back to the audience?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, don't make it that personal.
I thought I got into detail about my upbringing and such. I really did that go on for too long? I was like, he's talking about his childhood. He sounds like an idiot.
No, I think you timed that.
Yeah,
you
that
timed
worked.
that really well.
What's funny, Harlow, is I always listen back through me talking, and in the moment, sometimes like, oh, was that dumb? Did that sound dumb? And I listen back, I was like, no, okay, you did an okay job.
I think you did really well the hero's journey, where you show us like how you went in, how you came to become like the Pete that we all know right now? Because right now, of course, you are the biggest risk streamer, and everybody know most people that are joining the game right now, they know you as you are right now.
Yeah.
For some of us that were lucky to like reach you about 2 years ago, then we saw you midway getting there. But
Yes.
there is a lot of things, there is a lot of grind, there is a lot of steps that you have to go through that most people that are new or that are fairly new to the risk community, they don't know. So I think you did the whole hero's journey in a really good way. And it was really enjoyable. Okay, we got Loma back, and I lost another 10 stack.
Loma.
And for
I'm
that
here.
joke, I lost a 20.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My question was, so if there's one person in history that you could talk to and ask a question, who would it be and what would you ask them?
Ooh. See, there's
That is a
also
Miss Universe.
there's all
That is a
sorts
Miss Universe question.
of famous philosophers. I think that probably someone who I see as so beyond my ability that they're almost that I wouldn't even know what to ask, like Descartes or Immanuel Kant, or more recently someone like Wittgenstein, right? These epic figures in philosophy that really pushed the boundaries of their time. Those would be the people that I would want to sit down and have an actual conversation with. But as far as any individual question goes, I don't think I have, like the whole, like, what is the meaning of life? I wouldn't even want to know the answer. My understanding of this is that we discover the meaning, and we give things meaning by what we choose to look at, how we choose to spend our time, where we choose to invest our energy, who we love, and how we love in this world. That is, in a paradoxical way, I am both very curious but also aware of certain questions that knowing the answer to would reduce the beauty and the joy of my experience, would reduce the meaning, right? Like, this is the sort of thing, if you know the answer to what is the meaning of life, then you lose the meaning. It's almost like the biblical story where Adam and Eve are innocent in the Garden of Eden, and complete and pure and whole, but the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is what corrupts them and what brings them down to, our limited experience as humans, where we are, bags of meat that die. But in that brief moment where we are alive, we get to have all sorts of absolutely amazing experiences, right? You get to eat delicious food. You get to love your friends, love your family. You get to have fun. And ideally, you get to build something that feels meaningful in that brief moment. And I love that question, but this is how I would answer it. I want to ask the questions to myself and experience the answer. I don't know. Did you like that? Was that a fair answer to the question?
Hey,
I don't know.
I can say that if that was yesterday in Miss Universe, we will have Mr. Canada right now walking with the crown.
Miss Universe, eh? Let me show
Yeah,
let
it
me
was
show you my sequins bikini.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Thank you for having me, Harlow.
No, well, thank you for accepting, and thank you for giving us the joy to ask you these kind of questions. It's a different dynamic, don't you think? Like, usually
love
on Twitch,
this.
you have.
I loved this. I was really looking forward to it. I wasn't sure I'd be able to do a good job. I'm going to listen through and be like, how did he do? But again, yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. And yeah,
Well,
guys,
we
have
have
yourselves
one.
Oh, one more final question?
Yeah, one last question.
Okay,
one last
final
question. Yeah,
Let's do it.
Mooncakes wants to come back, and yeah, I think this is gonna be the last question. And after this, we are gonna go and do the gifting of the gift cards to people in the audience right now. So stick around until after this question is done. Then Paul is gonna spin the wheel, and we're gonna see who won the 2 gift cards that are gonna be brought to you. And again, before the last question, I'm sorry, Pete, let me remind you all that we have our sponsor, that is Coca-Cola, that were kind enough to sponsor this whole symposium that we are having right now with the great one, Pete, the great one of Risk. I'm giving you the rock title, the great one of Risk, Mr.
Hey,
Pete
thank you,
himself.
Joe Blue. Thank you for the raid,
Pete
man.
me on.
Pete me on.
Pete me on.
Yo.
So I'm just having fun. I'm happy to be here. To basically, not segue, I'll segue later. The answer is 42, Pete.
Okay.
The answer is
I've
absolutely 42.
I've heard it said.
For the meaning of life. Yeah. I'm glad you got that. So kind of going back just a little bit, I wanted to see what your thoughts are on, because I'm sure you've played the board game Risk, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so just like me, you grew up with it, you loved it. Would you like to see in a client different elements of, like, let's say, like Risk 2210, kind of recapturing those ideas from the offshoots of the board game itself?
I always like to say that more options are better than less. So short answer, yes, absolutely. Longer answer is what types of elements would add. And I think we're just barely, things like missions, like what we've been doing in the community with Assassin, or hold a bonus, can't hold a bonus stuff. I think or things like heroes. I know different types of, like the Game of Thrones Risk specifically I have allows you, there's like an in-game currency sort of where you can buy special abilities, special actions, different, maybe 8-sided die, all sorts of different options that can, spice it up, right? So absolutely, I would love to see this sort of thing.
Heck yeah, man. And that's also, like, straddling between innovation and staying true to what the game is. So that's for me, is like, I would consider myself more of a casual gamer, so maybe a slightly different perspective from your own. And being able to see it, like, to kind of go back and relive those memories, like the member berries. I don't know if you're a South Park fan, but it would just be something really, really cool to see, and that gets me really amped up. So yeah, appreciate you for your time. I'm rambling on now.
Awesome. And thank you for the questions.
Well, that is the last question for Pete himself, people. Thank you, everybody that has been watching on Pete's stream, on my stream, and here on the audience. Pete, any closing words for the symposium?
Sure. What I will say is this: we have a beautiful community. It is nothing less than an honor to be one of the faces of our game. I try to stand for fair competition. I try to stand for integrity. I try to spread a message of positivity and love in the world. I am beyond grateful to be the guy sitting in front of this camera and this microphone, to have an audience to speak to, and to help build a community for this game. And I want to thank you all for showing me that my voice is worth something. And I'm very excited to see where we go from here. I love you, folks. I appreciate you. And for all of you on the path to world domination, good games and good luck.